welcome everyone to this seminar. Thank you, RTS Futures, for inviting us to be a part of it, and really hope the next hour is helpful and informative. Hopefully you've come to the right place. We're going to be looking at the skills for the future of TV, particularly looking at VFX, animation, and virtual production. And as well, we're all aware that TV production is always evolving, and technological advances create new roles and opportunities to explore. And so we've got some experts that we're going to find out more about what they do and how the impact of virtual production particularly is overlapping with traditional skills, and hopefully resulting in fresh creativity and new careers and specialisms in TV production. So what I'm going to ask first of all is that we whiz down the panelists and that they give a really quick introduction to themselves, their name and their role. Jonathan, I'm going to start with you.
So I'm Jonathan Privet, and I'm a visual effects supervisor at Industrial Light and Magic.
Fantastic. Hannah, let's go to you.
I'm Hannah Smith, and I'm a texture artist at Industrial Light and Magic.
Great stuff. And Hannah, we would like to point out, is not either lying down or in a phone box of some kind. Michael.
Hello, I'm Michael McKenna. I'm the CEO and co-founder of Final Pixel.
Great stuff. And no.
I am Anna Sabolic, and I am Senior Environment Artist at Final Pixel.
Fantastic. I'm going to be very deliberate how I say Anna and Hannah today, so that they know who I'm directing questions to. Now, the way that this is going to work is that we've got some questions that we've worked out between us, but there will be an opportunity for you to ask questions as well. So we're going to find out a little bit more about our panelists, and then I will tell you how you can go about asking the questions as we go along. So by way of finding out a little bit more about each of you, we're going to whiz down the line again, and I'd like you to describe what a typical day in your role might look like. And this is where you all kind of tut and roll your eyes and go, oh, they're all so different from one another. But give us an exciting day, a typical day in your role. Jonathan, let's start with you again.
If I was being really facetious, I'd say my day consists of me saying if I like stuff or not. For 8 hours or 10 hours. A typical day when we're actually in post-production is, in all honesty, what I do is sit in a screening room and be shown various stages of the VFX process, one shot after another. So I might see 100 different versions in a day, ranging from blocking animation, where we're just setting out a scene in its most basic form and moving the camera around, again, creatures in the right place, all the way to final composite, where, you know, I'm looking to see if there's a buzzy edge or someone's accidentally missed a car in shot or whatever it is. So yeah, it's very much focused on the process of producing the most beautiful final image, and that's what I do. Some days Fantastic. I'm out in the Caribbean filming. Those are the better days, but they're not typical.
But today you're in Bristol.
Today I'm in Bristol with my clients are in Bristol. So
very good. Thank you, Jonathan. That's really helpful. Michael, let me come to you. What's a typical day look like for you?
I mean, as you can imagine, as the CEO, it's quite varied. A recent typical day was flying out to Los Angeles for a TV shoot where we were filming on a large volume stage. We specialize in virtual production, so we work with LED walls, and so quite often I'm involved in projects right at the very start when there's like an idea and someone comes along and says, hey, we've kind of got this idea, we've got this IP that we might be able to use in virtual production, and a lot of my time is spent really you may want to call it education. I don't know. A lot of time is really spent explaining this technology and how people can use it in ways which, you know, are different and innovative in order to achieve really great final pixel results. And so yeah, like my day involves meeting lots of different people, quite often reviewing final edits of things as well. You know, yeah, on Friday, for example, looking at the final grade of a piece and sort of having a kind of final sign off on that. So Yeah, it's very varied. It's changed a lot over the last 4 years, and I think it's going to continue to change. But virtual production is continuing to grow, and more and more people are continuing to take it on. So the team that we've got is continuing to expand as a result. And every time we bring in more people, like my job tends to change again. So yeah, very varied.
Good stuff. Thanks, Michael. That's great. So let me go to one of your team, Anna. So Michael's flying off to LA on a regular basis. Presumably, he's taking you with him kind of all of the time. But what would a typical day look like for you?
Yeah, I was in LA with Michael. Yeah, that was great. I don't always go because many times for an environment artist, the process before the shoot is quite long and studio based, so you can't really travel at that stage. So I think everyone, every Unreal artist, when the time is to go to set, is very excited about to leave the house after sometimes months of work. So yeah, I think for Unreal artists, the typical days are very different from before and after the shoot. Before the shoot is a lot about collaboration with other teams, a lot about workflows management with VAD, between VAD and other teams in production, where you have to make sure that you're always aligned with them and you address the creative nodes. So typical day starts with addressing those creative nodes and seeing what are the options in technical aspects of project, so you don't end up leaving your optimization to the very end. And then after the shoot is done and everybody's happy, it's all recorded, then it's about the second part of the role, which is getting all the tracking data together, trying to organize that files from the set, seeing what are needs in a comp department from you to kind of, deliver some maybe overscans or, basically being, again, of a service to many, many other departments.
Great stuff. Thank you, Anna. That's great. And Hannah, when Jonathan lets you out of your box, what do you get up to?
Yeah, it's a lot less fun for me. I don't get to go anywhere. I just stay in London all the time. Clearly, I need to start getting some flights somewhere. But yeah, so I'm a texture artist. So typically for me, I'm going to Jonathan, trying to get an approval. And texturing specifically is focusing on the material of an asset. So I'm based in assets. And I'll typically, from the previous day, render a turntable, submit that to review, which is called dailies, so it happens daily, to get feedback and then spend the rest of my time kind of working on refining whatever notes I got in that review. And then, yeah, focusing on, so for example, if we talk in the context of life on our planet, where we were doing dinosaurs, I'm putting up references for scales on like animals that we know now, so lizards, iguanas, and looking at how I can kind of make my work look more like that, basically, and get it looking as realistic as possible. Yeah.
Great stuff. Thank you, Hannah. That's really, really good. Really appreciate that. So, like I said, you've got the opportunity to ask questions yourself. There's a Q&A button at the bottom of your Zoom window. Feel free to pop a question in there at any time. I think I'm right in saying that it's not public to everyone, so be welcome to ask what question you like, and we will try and get as many of them answered as possible. I'm going to direct this next question to Michael and Jonathan. Aware that because this is RTS Futures, there may be people who are new to the terms of virtual production. So I'm going to come to you, Michael, first of all, and say, what kind of is it? Can you briefly explain kind of how it works and how that differs from traditional TV production? And then Jonathan, I'll bring the same kind of question for you, just to briefly explain what it is that you do, so that we can get a grasp of that before we dive a bit deeper. Michael.
Yeah, in some ways it's still evolving. I would say how we think about virtual production might be different to even how Jonathan would describe it, interestingly. We certainly look at it as a whole approach to production from end to end, from start to finish, as opposed to like tool in the toolbox. We're much more trying to work with people from very early on in a scripting writing phase to use new technologies, specifically, what we've specialized in a lot over the last 4 years is LED wall virtual production. So where we have a giant LED screen, which is essentially a giant TV, right? It's just a big TV, and then you play content on that television, so that it will give you real-time lighting, but also, you know, what we've been striving to do is actually use it as a final pixel shot, so we get in-camera VFX. Essentially, you're able to put any background up there. You can film your actors in front of it, and through the use of software like Unreal Engine, we can actually track our camera around, so that as we move the camera left to right, the environment reacts and it creates parallax, and it feels like you're embedding the actors in this real kind of world. And yeah, so like when we think about virtual production, you know, quite often people might think of a large LED volume stage. We design the stage for the job. So on some jobs it might be, for example, we just done a shoot which was one of the largest stages in the US. Other times we're trying to fit things into a budget and an approach where actually the wall would be a different size and more tailored for the actual project in hand. So specifically, we try and design everything around the creative to try and use all these technologies in a way that creates the best result. So I could show you an example of that as well at some point, maybe later in the call. But yeah, John.
Sure. Yeah, thank you. Appreciate that. And I forgot to introduce myself. So I'm managing director and exec producer of 3 Arrows Media, and I've just finished working with Michael and Anna on a piece of virtual production as part of a series for a show called Awesome Animals and Mini Me, which has been on Sky Kids, and that was an incredibly exciting kind of opportunity to get under the nails, under the bonnet of virtual production to see what was possible. And we ended up doing a lot of stuff on there in a very fun way that really. Oh, here we go. We've got some.
With this stuff, it always really helps with visuals. Like you can listen to me talk about it, but actually, having a look at the visual really helps. So you know, this is a stage. The LED wall is at the back, and the environment here is being created in Unreal Engine. It's running in real time, so it uses real time rendering as opposed to pre-rendered, which means you know, everything is essentially live on the wall at 25 frames per second. And
so literally everything that you're seeing there behind those wooden posts is entirely 3D animated and virtual on the wall. Incredible.
And so and then as you can see, you know, when you shoot that in camera, it's essentially creating this in camera composite. There is a green screen workflow as well, which is very popular. You know, like you can shoot with green screen so that you don't see the background, and you can still use the same real-time technology to get a real-time composite in the monitor. But yeah, we really like working with LED. We think it adds a lot to the overall production value for many different reasons. One of the main ones, you know, that proved to be very useful for this was around the accessibility for people who could come on stage and might have accessibility needs, like some of the kids in here in particular. You know, one had a prosthetic leg, and you know, the ability to shoot in a controlled environment in a studio, be able to show, you know, people you're working with who maybe are not used to working in filmmaking a background, and they understand what it is that's been done. You know, there's less kind of imagination required at times. Really brings a kind of different dynamic to the whole production.
Yeah, and really made a big difference to the performers as well, to be able to, they could see where they were, they could feel more like the environment that they were kind of being shot in front of. Thank you for that, Michael. Jonathan, let me come to you and ask you the same question. Give us a deeper kind of insight into, you know, what virtual production and visual effects you do and how that differs perhaps to more traditional methods.
It was quite interesting. I liked that you asked me this question, because I've never really thought about how to explain it in a sentence before, because I thought, well, how can you explain that? And I thought to myself, well, VFX in the context of making film and television is basically the creation of things that don't exist or aren't where you want them to be, or sometimes the removal of things that are there that you don't want to be there. In its most simple form, if there's some content that you need in your production that there is no way of making physically, then that has to be visual effects. And so That ranges anywhere, and it does. I mean, to Michael's point, it does include virtual production. So his background in his virtual production is a visual effect in that case, because it isn't real. I mean, it could have been real. He could have gone and sort of shot a beach, but obviously it wouldn't move with the way the camera does, and you wouldn't get parallax, etc. So that is included in visual effects. But it is the whole gamut of things. If you want a spaceship, or you want a rhino to run across your film set, and you're not going to be able to get one from a zoo to do that, it becomes visual effects. But also it can be as mundane as, I've painted out Kate Moss's spots in the past. That's a visual effect.
Did she ask?
She didn't ask, actually, no. I think some of her people probably asked. I was a long way from, covering them up with makeup myself. I don't know why they didn't do that in the first place. Anyway, so yes, visual effects is an enormously broad spectrum, from the super, super complicated to the actually, the quite mundane. So, you might be painting out a telephone wall box from a Victorian drama. It's not T-Rex eating a pachycephalosaur.
Good stuff. I'm going to ask Anna and Hannah a question that's come in, which is, when you talk to someone about what you do you describe yourself as a virtual production specific person or animator, or do you tend to describe your role as being more varied or more broad than that? I'll come to you, Anna, first of all, because I know you from virtual production, and so I'm interested to know what you say. But Hannah, I'll come to you in a second.
Recently I had the airport security asking me, what do I do? And then this conversation went really, really long-winded and then I caught myself, wow, you're trying to explain something that is so new to someone who doesn't really, needs to have the understanding of what Unreal Engine is. And you just kind of stop at some point and you just go very basic. It is quite new terminology, and the roles are a senior environment artist. It's a role that is quite new to the filmmaking industry, right? So without the general kind of insight into what virtual production is, you can't really tell what do we do. There is this correlation with gaming industry. Of course, as environment artist, this is very familiar in the gaming environment. So this is what you do in games. But in terms of filmmaking, yes, you do need to kind of put a little bit of extra effort to try to explain that, yeah, we do filmmaking now, which is in the engine that is called Unreal Engine, that used to be for games only. And now we kind of try to break that kind of gap between those two worlds of CGI and digital art and bring it forward, create in-camera VFX. So yeah, it goes on and on. At the end of the day, I think the simplest way to explain it is in-camera VFX, right? This is what we do. This is what the goal is. We try to achieve final pixel in the camera. Great.
That's excellent. And when you said that to the customs person, we let in the country?
He was just let it go. Yeah. I don't want to just go.
That was great. Hannah, what about you? How do you describe what you do to people?
Yeah, I usually just don't even bother trying. Texturing is so specific. It's such a weird thing to explain. So usually I just say I just work in CG, because I feel like now everyone kind of understands what CG is. So usually I'm just I work in CG.
But you would see your own role as having broad applications, right? It's not kind of just down, film, or it's not just kind of virtual production.
Yes and no, because texturing is so specific, it kind of, for the role to exist, you need specific types of, I guess, production. Sometimes assets will be, if you're working in assets, that will involve more roles. So you'd be modeling, texturing, and look different, depending whether that, and then asset artists exist in all industries, but texturing specifically tends to be when, a show or the production requires somebody that specifically just focuses on making the quality of that surface look as real as possible. And I don't pay attention to anything else. Just that's my only role. So it's quite niche, I guess.
Hannah
go
is
through your
master. She is a master of her trade and a jack of none.
I see. Okay. Do you go through your day-to-day life just hyper observant of textures?
Yeah, like you could ask any texturist, you're always thinking, or I would say potentially anyone that textures in general, like works in assets and does like surfacing, you're always looking at dirt, rust patterns, like you'll walk past a building and you'll be like, the size of the drip off of that building is so much bigger than I thought it would be. That is literally like thoughts I have in my head.
Love it. That's great. Really good. Thank you for that. Appreciate that. I'm going to come to Michael and Jonathan again initially, but Anna and Hannah, feel free to chip in. You're obviously both used to working around the world, and we know obviously that America is the big kind of center for all things kind of film and money in general. But I want to try and ask, like, what do you feel the current landscape is of VFX and VP in the UK? Like, if we got a good reputation for it, are there more opportunities here than elsewhere? Any kind of thoughts to that effect? Michael, do you want to go first?
I mean, yeah, I think it's looking positive, to be honest. Like, I really do. I think that in the UK, we're seeing, we've been through a period where it's been very challenging, but I think the conversations we're having about projects for next year, toward the end of this year, even still some smaller things, there's a real general kind of, there's something going on, and I think that's because we're in the virtual production space where we're starting to see TV shows like the one we just looked at there, go out on Sky Kids, and people are starting to see virtual production across, a much wider array of shows than purely, House of the Dragon, major mega budget features. We're starting to see how it can be applied in different ways. And so as a result, for us, that means there's a lot of real interest in filming with virtual production in the UK. And there's also the combination of, the sort of conversations I have are ones around how we're going to also, fund and create the right kind of environment for like a US production to come and film here, or a production from another country. So the tax credit kind of situation, the kind of positive signs around that for the next and going into next year, these are all really encouraging. And you can look at virtual production as a way to achieve a location shoot in a studio, and that studio could be anywhere in the world, but actually that studio, increasingly basing yourself in the UK makes a lot of sense, because we have a really high standard of talent now working in virtual production, I would say, particularly when it comes to the on-set stage element. The UK and the US are really, quite far ahead, I feel, internationally on that. And that's going to continue. And I think that there's more and more of those opportunities. The other thing, which is, hugely great about VFX in general and working in CG, I think, is the ability to work remotely on things. So for people to be able to base themselves wherever they are in the UK, but still support shoots or support, the projects that may be international or projects that may be in the UK. And the access to internet is like the main barrier for people there, really. Like, ultimately accessing software and everything these days can be done quite easily. So I think that that's a big. So I feel things are heading in a really positive direction. There's a lot of need for innovation because things have been tighter. People are having to find new ways of doing things, which means for new talent, for people like Anna, like able to come into a role and then quite quickly find themselves in a situation that they may not have been in, in like a sort of different pathway through TV. The opportunities that sort of come with working with the new technology means that you're sort of communicating with a different group of stakeholders compared to the kind of traditional approach to filmmaking. And that leads to loads of other opportunities too. So I feel really positive about all that side of it, but
And Jonathan, let me ask you, what do you feel, is the kind of reputation of the UK in a global context, but also are there regions of the UK that are particularly kind of pushing forward in this new area of VP and of VFX?
Yeah, I mean, globally, the UK is in a really, really strong position. I mean, it would be a lie to say that partly that is due to government finance tax credits. Certainly where high-end TV and film production, which obviously, you know, employs a huge number of people in visual effects, comes down to it. And you'll find the big centers, the world centers of visual effects are driven by those tax credits. So there's Vancouver and Montreal in Canada, and obviously New Zealand to a certain extent as well. So, you know, a few people in Europe, but obviously they don't have the same level of tax credit as us. So it's a really exciting time. We probably, outside of, I suspect India might have more visual effects artists in the UK now, but we're certainly, I'd be surprised if we don't have the most in the world. And all the big you know, Framestore, MPC, Industrial Light and Magic, you know, all the major names have a foothold in the UK. And as Michael rightly said, you know, remote working means, yes, ILM Central is in London, where you can get to lie down and do yoga whilst being on a call like Hannah. But we, you know, we only require people to go into the office 2 days a week. I mean, I live near Durham, so
right.
You know, I'm further away than Paris or Amsterdam from the office, as the crow.
Right.
But yeah, so I mean, there's a lot of flexibility there as well. So yes, although most people are London based, there are a few companies here in Bristol actually as well. So which Primary, Moonraker, I think there's Luxor Turner, and there's Bournemouth. So yeah, it's quite varied. There's a lot of opportunities. I think there must be probably 5,000 or 6,000 jobs in visual effects in the UK, maybe more.
Great. That's great. I'm a Bournemouth uni graduate myself, TV and video production. Not that video exists anymore, but big up the Bournemouth. If anyone's studying there, great animation department. Okay, we've had lots of questions come in about the same subject, and it's not going to be a big surprise as to what that is. It's 2 letters, A and I. What do you feel that either gives us opportunities or is a threat to the kind of things that you are doing at the moment? I'm going to come to the texture designers, the techie. Well, no, you're all technical, but Hannah, let me come to you. Okay, you observe textures all the time. Is AI just going to do it for you at some point? Do you feel any kind of threat? What's happening?
I mean, I'm intrigued what other panelists think. I personally just think AI is just another tool. I don't see it as a threat. It's just going to be something that gets added in, like you have software in general. It's just another tool in the toolbox. I'm sure, like, I just think like when machines came in like production, like food production or like manufacturing, people were probably thinking like, yeah, okay, it's changing the process, but it's just another tool that's making it easier, faster. So like there are so many parts of my job and I'm like, I'm ready for AI to do this now. I want to stick to the fun parts. So yeah, I'm currently not using it in my like day-to-day life, but like we're always using like procedural like maths-based thing, and I see AI just basically getting us there quicker, really, as another tool, not a threat at all.
Thanks, Hannah. That's great. Anna, let me come to you. What do you think?
Yeah, I completely agree with Hannah. In this procedural workflows, we need smarter tools, right? This is where we can benefit from AI the most. Day to day, maybe as an upscale an image to get things done quicker. Again, you have to be on top of it, right? You have to understand what it does and review it. It can't do it completely without you. But in procedural workflows, I would like to see even more machine learning and even smarter results that we can get, because that can speed up our optimization process, that can, leave us to more creative and artwork and less, optimizing or dealing with tech stuff. So yeah, I'm looking forward to that actually.
Michael, do you want to say anything to this?
Yeah, I mean, I think there's obviously a lot of discussion about AI, and it seems to be it's not quite landed in the kind of AI conversations yet, but it's starting to finally land. Is that film and TV is a craft? Like it's a craft. Like it needs people to craft it. There's a reason why Mandalorian costs whatever 10 million an episode, and another show costs $1 million an episode or less. Like, there's a fundamental reason there that exists, and a lot of it is down to craft, and it's about putting together the best people, the best processes, the best approach in order to create something, as Jonathan says, which just looks, beautiful, and it takes a craft to get to that. And so it doesn't, so I'd agree with Hannah and Anna, ultimately these are new tools that help us get there, but it's always going to require artists, because at some point Jonathan's going to look at it and say, no, I don't like that. and like that. And then so it's going to be an iteration. So someone has to iterate it, and someone has to change it and have to design it. And John, you had the same experience, with Awesome Animals again. If I think about, specifically, we went through a process of creating backgrounds. Sure, you could have created one background on AI, but then we go through a series of creative reviews with the commissioner to really specifically lift a mountain, put it over there, let's put that there, let's put that there. That's how you come to an artistic craft. And I think that we're never going to lose that in film and TV, because that is the whole point of the industry in a way.
Yeah, good stuff. Thank you. I'm going to just move us on. We've got loads more questions coming in. I've seen someone just saying, is this being recorded? And yes, it is. I believe it's going to be made available via the RTS site afterwards. So don't worry about that. There's been a few questions come in. Jonathan, I'll push this one towards you. What do entry level filmmakers or creatives need to know in order to get into a similar path to which you guys are all in? Are there any kind of good basics that people need to have in place?
Yeah, I mean, obviously there's a big split between creative roles and production. I mean, in a creative role, as Michael said, we'd be looking for demonstrable skills, really. So I'd normally be looking at a show reel that someone had sent me. I mean, for a texture artist, that could even be incredibly good traditional art skills might be enough. But I mean, they'd be more likely to go into our concept department. But, it wouldn't take long for somebody to learn the specific pieces of software. I mean, unfortunately, the creative side is a craft. So it's a little bit like a plumber. I mean, it's not actually an academic pursuit in many ways. It's like, if you have the skills, Hannah's got a great eye, but she also has to be able to work inside our pipeline and operate the specific bit of software. If she can't do that, she's not a great deal of use to us. And although we do help bring people on, and we have something called the Jedi Academy for graduates at ILM, but we get a lot of people applying to that, obviously. So we do have in-house training. A certain degree of skill is required for it to make financial sense to us from the outset. So it's very rare that we would take one with no definable skills related to what they have to do in their job role. Production, on the other hand, at the entry level, it's about organization. You can learn enough about visual effects to get through that interview. You can show keenness in the subject matter. You can understand the basic parts of visual effects, and you can find that from anywhere on the internet and making of videos. And then actually it's down to, personality and an application. I really like, we've hired some of the best people we've hired have come from, someone worked, as a manager at the Lego store. Absolutely brilliant. People have worked in catering, they've worked in factories. It's that kind of grafting application that I would get excited about. Is you prove you can do something that's actually quite hard, that's hard graft, and you can stick with it. And that is really important, especially in something like production, where it is quite hard and it can be repetitive. It does have exciting moments, but those things are a real necessity.
So Jonathan and Michael, as the two of those who are more likely to be doing the hiring and firing, are there particular areas or roles that you guys consistently struggle to fill? Do you feel like, I just wish there were more or more why, or people with this experience or that experience, or not? Do you just feel like you've got people coming out your ears? Jonathan?
For us, the more technical roles are normally the hardest to fill for us, because obviously we underlying all the things that we do when we're passing Hannah's work to somebody else and backwards and forwards, we call it a pipeline, which underlies all the different disciplines talking to each other. And obviously all that stuff has to be coded. And so for us, the hardest people to find are people who are actually interested, computer science graduates, because we don't pay as well as going to work for an investment bank in the city. They probably earn what I do. So after 30 years in my job, so that role is often hard to fill. You need someone who really, really is more interested in getting involved in an exciting industry than making shitloads of money.
Yeah, great. Michael, what about you?
Yeah, I mean, after we founded the company, very quickly found there was not a lot of people around that knew that had all the skills in the right places to be able to do consistently the kind of virtual production, Bang & Pixel virtual production work that we were trying to do. So I actually set up an academy, which is I didn't call it the Jedi Academy. I mean, that would have been great if I called it the Jedi Academy. But the Bang & Pixel Academy, and which is actually an open academy in that sense, and that anyone can come and work in it and learn about virtual production. They don't have to come and work with us. They can then go off and work somewhere else. And that's been the method for trying to train for the new kind of roles that have emerged from this way of filming, with LED walls on set. And I thought I might just share this quickly to give an idea of what I'm talking about. So a lot of these roles over here that kind of sit under the VP supervisor, the virtual production supervisor, a lot of these are quite new and still quite dynamically changing type roles. The kind of in-display or like stage operator type roles can be very technical. Got the VP stage tech, and then it sort of starts to then blend into the environment builds and the art side here in the middle here, where we've got like the senior technical artists. Again, these have been really hard to find. So these are people who understand working with real time and then understand optimization, but also then have the skills to be able to be on set, and as we were talking about earlier, there's a traditional way of filmmaking that has a very hierarchical structure, and it can be very different for someone, say, if you came from games or you worked in VFX, to then all of a sudden be in like a decision-making capacity on set, where now you're part of the pipeline that's happening on set, that's no longer part of a post pipeline, but one that's either in pre-production or on set. So like that introduces, other skills and certain etiquette and things. So yeah, trying to find the people who are the absolute best, because that's, we strive to get really high quality results. And so very rarely does any of those people at this point come like, ta-da, prepackaged unicorn, can do everything, and that goes for all these roles, including the VP supervisors and the VAD supervisors. So, the academy has been great for us to kind of help train for that. And actually, Anna came through the Bang & Pixel Academy a few years ago. And, talking about Anna, one of the key things there with her was I was looking for artists as well. So like, for this technical artist role, it's technical artist, and the artist element is hugely important, as you can imagine. And so actually looking for people from traditional art background, fine art, or also from like architecture has been a really great, pipeline of talent, if you like, people who came from similar but different disciplines that have a degree of technical, but they also come in with an eye, with understanding of composition, understanding of these things. So that was a kind of very long answer, but I thought it might just give a bit more color to the kind of landscape
That's really good.
At the moment, and kind of
that's really helpful. Thank you. Now keep your questions coming in, please. I've seen that the panelists have the ability to see them, and Jonathan is such a good multi-skiller. He's actually responding to some of them as well. So you can ask Jonathan anything and he'll probably give you kind of an answer straight away. One of the questions that I saw you answer, but for everyone's benefit, what percentage of people that work for Industrial Light and Magic are freelancers versus staff?
And my reply to that question is quite a high percentage of project-based roles, because obviously we do a Star Wars movie and that requires 500 people on the team for 6 months, and then that goes away, and obviously we can't then support that level of staffing. But historically, the industry has been growing consistently. I mean, it would be a lie to say that is the case currently in visual effects. It is probably post-COVID and post-writers and actor strikes, it plateaued somewhat, but people are still finding roles, because what happens is, we finished doing Star Wars and Framestore doing Paddington 3 or whatever it is, so people will move around inside the industry, and obviously once you've done one role well, you tend to know other people, and so there's a little community. I mean, Hannah's probably actually better placed to do that, because at my level the roles tend to be full-time, so I mean I'm a full-time employee, but as is Hannah probably. I don't know, right?
Yeah, I've been here for a long time now. So in the UK, when you get extended for 4 years, they make you permanent. So now that's how you get a permanent role in visual effects. But yeah, no, so everything, it's not the same necessarily as freelancing. Some companies it will be like you are a freelancer and you send in your invoices. Like I've had that working in advertisement. But typically you'll get a fixed term contract offered. So it will be like 3 to 6 to a year months, and then that can get extended, and you will be brought on for a project. And then if a project lines up for when your contract's ending, you'll get extended to move on to another project. So it kind of works like that. And then you can continually be renewed until you hit permanent. But yeah, it is kind of you should probably think about it like more like a freelancer, because it's definitely less stable as someone being in a full-time job.
Yeah, great. That's really helpful. Thank you. Okay, so having a job is obviously kind of what people want. Having good income is what people kind of want and crave and need. And yet we want to keep in focus, kind of in this webinar, just the sheer excitement of the creativity and all of the wonderful creative options that VFX and virtual production and animation kind of give us. So as almost like a little bit of a breather before we dive back into more questions, I want to come to Anna initially, and I may ask others as well. Can you tell us something that you're working on at the moment that you are just super excited about? And you can get as nerdy as you want here, but we just want to know, what are you really enjoying creating at the moment?
Yeah, we can't tell you what we're working on, of course. But what I was super excited in this latest project was the aspects of like lighting, which is very creative aspects of creating environments. In Unreal Engine, the possibilities of designing lighting and blending that lighting once you are on set or on a previs or TechVis call with the DOP and director is just incredible. You can do so much. You can, if you're shooting, for example, a night scene, you can have it for 3 days, right? And you can perfect that night scene and lighting and the reflection in the water of that night scene to the level of like almost, creative, kind of, overexcitement, I guess. So it's really there's a great potential in it, right? You can plan your shoots more wisely. You can design your scenes to the detail that you want. Then you can review it with DOP and director prior to the shoot. So once you come there, there is obviously a little offset when you see it on a LED wall, and we usually tell our clients, don't look at the LED wall, look at the camera, because LEDs are doing their own fun part in making part of the process a bit more complicated than the technical side. But yeah.
I remember coming out of the studio 5 days shooting with you guys and feeling like the world was really sharp. It was really crisp, but it's because of being staring at an LED screen.
I remember, yeah.
be crisp.
Yeah.
Hannah, let me come to you. What can you not tell me about what you're working on?
Yeah.
What you're getting excited about? What drips from buildings have you got super
This
excited
is,
about?
Well, actually,
illegal or on the phone. Hannah cannot tell you what she.
I haven't
Come on,
actually
Hannah.
worked on buildings for a really long time. I've actually been doing a lot of creatures for like the past few years, a while now. Jonathan started it. It all started on Life on Our Planet 1. And I haven't left creatures since. And I do love it. I think what I get excited about, what I'm still fortunate to be able to do, is getting a concept and making a concept real. Like that, it's just so fun. Like researching into animals, like you have like this blue animal, and then it's like, okay, well, what is blue in real life? What would blue skin even look like? And getting to like look into that, or like you have like an alien, um, and it's like, what is the quality of an alien skin? Because it has to have something. So stuff like that, I've been finding really fun. Just yeah, trying to make concepts that are like very painterly to begin with, actually like exist in the real world. Like this needs to be a creature that exists and functions in its environment that we're putting it in, and kind of like having the freedom to like decide and research and look into that and build that is very fun.
Great stuff. Thank you for that. Good. I'm going to kind of keep going with the questions, and obviously because there's hundreds of you asking them, we might kind of zip around thematically a little bit, but I'm keen to try and answer what it is that you want answered, rather than me just kind of going by what we've prepped beforehand. So let's ask just a couple of specific questions to begin with. Michael, this is for you, I think, because I think it pertains to virtual production. Can archive footage be used towards a workflow? And if so, what resolution would it need to be at, or not?
Yeah. We've again, like, as long as you bring this into your planning process early on, we shot the launch promo for the Oracle Red Bull Racing Formula One car last year. And in order to do that, we combined like footage of driving plates, as well as some footage of like stock plates, to allow us to make it look like the car was driving, for example. So it was only in very limited shots. It was where we already knew that where we knew it would work, kind of thing. But yeah, ultimately the resolution is a challenge, and you definitely want to have as high a resolution as the wall. The wall is got a pixel pitch, it's got a pixel density, so you can in advance what that needs to be. You can source material that's going to be the right kind of resolution to hold up on camera. I think the downside though of stock is quite often you don't have any handles on it, so there's no ability to grade the way you would like to grade with alternatives, and so it's probably quite limited in use because of that ultimately, but we definitely have applied it, and it's a good way of achieving something if, say, the budget can't stretch to go and get that shot, and it just has to be one element. But yeah, it's not hugely common. And then yeah, I think that probably answers.
Good. Yeah, no, that's great. Thank you, Michael. That's great. I can see that Jonathan, Anna, and Hannah are kind of looking at other screens. I think they're answering questions like left, right, and centre. This is great. You're kind of ticking them off, knocking them off. But I want to try and ask them so that everyone can hear. Quick one for you, Jonathan. Do ILM offer work experience or internships?
Yeah, as I said before, we do the thing called the Jedi Academy, where we take, I think it's 10 people. It depends actually, interestingly, on our finances to a certain extent, how many people we take, but we do try and take a good broad spectrum of people to do that. But it is based on them having some knowledge of visual effects again, so it's unlikely that it would be stone cold. If you were doing a degree in history, you would be unlikely to get on the Jedi Academy.
Yeah.
Unless I actually was on the Jedi Academy, and the production graduate actually did study history in my year. So if you're going into production, technically you could.
If you're going, from an artistic role, yes, but production. But there are how many people were in production in your year?
Mine, it was just one in production.
Yeah, so
it tends to just be one role per discipline, depending, or sometimes more if there's like the show that demands more, like there's more junior work and they can get involved on shows. But yeah, I would say that the Jedi Academy is quite advanced in the sense that you have a lot more support, but you are basically doing that role. You're just kind of being handheld through it, but you would be expected to know a lot of software.
For those people out there who are interested in doing, getting into the creative side of visual effects or indeed virtual production, apart from obviously the course that Michael runs, I've always found Escape Studios, who run visual effects courses privately, to produce really good graduates if those graduates go in, with a good mindset and have some natural ability. I mean, we some of the people that I've hired, several people straight from that. One of whom last year was nominated for 2 Oscars, and I hired him from Escape Studios and gave him his first job, and he's worked with me ever since. So
great.
It can be done. And he came from Sardinia and had just worked in his family's restaurant before he did that. So there you go.
Amazing. That's a great story. Anna, I'm going to come to you. You came through the Final Pixel Academy. Are there any particular industry standard software that you would recommend people know or get their heads around? Or is it all just moving at such a pace you've just got to keep ahead with everything that's going on?
I mean, the obvious choice for virtual production is Unreal Engine. With every update, you have to love learning and R&D. It has to be very close to your heart to be kind of successful in keeping up with all the trends of Unreal Engine updates. Every new release bring us something new to discover and to learn from. So that's definitely a good point. I think Unreal Engine, it's not just for virtual production. You will benefit from having those skills in many other areas. I've started at Final Pixel Academy, basically trying to put together a very broad spectrum of things that I've been doing before. I've been working in motion graphics, post-production, traditional art making, and then I just started to find a software that will kind of put out all of that in one place and then go from there. And I didn't regret ever since. So it's free software for personal use now, so I would definitely start there. In terms of 3D modeling, which we use quite a lot because there are specific requests that we get from clients. So, Maya is what we use. Substance also. I think Adobe people are in creative industry very familiar with Adobe, and it's a good starting point as well to understand, animation, maybe rigging a little bit of that in After Effects, a bit of cut and color in Premiere Pro. So it's also a good software to know. And then definitely. What we use more and more now is DaVinci as integrated part of our workflow with Unreal Engine exports and renders. This is a place where we kind of check our files and do some alignments with comp and stuff. So yeah, it sounds a lot. But it's very important to start small. That's I think the most important thing, and that's what I would say. Start small. Focus on really what you think you can like for years, and then master the skill. Not trying to learn all at once to get into the industry.
That's good. That's good advice. Thank you for that. We've got an interesting question come in, which Jonathan, I think, is in the process of typing an answer to, about what the work culture is like in VFX. Is it particularly any different to other forms of production? I mean, generally speaking, the film and TV industry is one that I would say hasn't got the best reputation of treating people brilliantly well. There's a bit of a use them, kind of grind them into the ground and spit them out the other end type thing. Obviously, ILM and Final Pixel would have a much higher kind of level of care of people. But is there anything that you guys can speak to about the work culture within VFX? Michael, do you want to take
I mean, I would say that we were very aware of the the kind of culture around VFX in the past, and we've our company, as Anna will attest to, is very like focused on our values. We're very clear on our values. It's very important to me. It's really important to everyone in the senior team that how we use this technology is one thing, but actually it's about being human with each other and being human, and we really strive to achieve that everywhere we can. The industry, as you say, is very challenging. It can be very challenging as well from the point of view of being accessible. And I think virtual production has given us lots of benefits from that point of view. For people with disabilities, for example, can get much more involved. So I think there's a real need to keep that front and center. So as we go into projects, we're very privileged to go in on these really exciting new way of doing things, but we're doing it alongside this message of let's just make production a nicer place to be for everyone, and bringing that right back up, and we're very active on that. I've got an example just this week where we had a client who there was somebody in that team that was behaving in a way that really was detrimental to our team and was causing pain, and I took that back to the client to say, look, well, we just can't work with that. That's not acceptable, and ultimately we have a values charter that we ask anyone who works with us to essentially sign up to, which involves treating each other human and living by the same kind of values that we do. So yeah, it's really important for us, and I think that I'm sure it's very similar for ILM these days. So I'll let Jonathan.
Yeah, Jonathan, let me come to you on that. You must have people with incredibly high demands, super stressed themselves, and thus leaning on you heavily for the very best results. And that must have to cascade down as well. What's the work culture like at ILM and in general in the VFX industry?
Yeah, I mean, I start by saying it has changed out of all recognition in my time in the industry, because it was terrible 20 or 30 years ago. The expectation was that for no recompense you would be sleeping under your desk and getting up the next morning and carrying on, but luckily some sense has prevailed as the industry has matured, and now yes, it can be at the end of projects with more demanding clients, obviously, that people are asked to come in at weekends, but now overtime is paid, certainly by ILM, for coming in those days when that didn't even used to be a thing. So you do get recompense for it. It's really not bad at all. We do look after our artists. I mean, I think Hannah would speak to the fact that she probably doesn't have to work 70 hours a week, hopefully.
Hannah, this is your chance.
No, Jonathan, you know me. I love to throw
she
social.
wouldn't be doing. We should make cocktails at 5:30 normally at Ireland. If you want to speak to the culture, Hannah is master of the cocktail. So, yeah, if you have vicinity, get her to come down and make you one. Great.
How have you found it though, Hannah? Because obviously you come in at a junior level, and you obviously want to show that you can do it, but you want to show that you're committed to it as well. How's that dynamic been for you, and obviously for generally the VFX industry? I'm not asking you to say anything about yourself or about ILM.
I think in general, like visual effects is a creative industry, and I think it compares probably a lot more to like when you compare it to other creative spaces. You're dealing with people that are very passionate about what they're producing, and everyone is like, very passionate of just wanting to produce the best thing possible, and like it's almost quite personal, and I think so you get a lot of support, and everyone is very like supportive and willing to help you a lot of the time. But then also artists, creative people sometimes maybe want to keep secrets to themselves, but at ILM we're very open to kind of like collaboration, innovation, like pushing ideas, like pushing ourselves as artists to how we can be better. And that's my favorite part about the creative side of an industry.
Good stuff. Thank you, Hannah. I am sorry to say that we've now kind of come to the end of our hour, but it's been really interesting to talk to you all. Thank you for your time. Thank you for joining us. Apologies if we didn't get around to answering all of your questions. As far as I'm aware, this has been recorded and it's going to be on the RTS Futures website. So do check that out. And hopefully you'll be able to go through, find out all the different advice and encouragements that we're given about where you can go for kind of future study, and wish you all the best, everyone. Apparently, when this Zoom finishes, it comes to a very abrupt close. So go back to your normal lives, citizens. Thanks ever so much for your time. Take care. Bye.